I don't know if I'm live or yet. Not yet. I might be. Let's view my channel and find out. Oh, it looks like we're live. Hey, there we are, everybody. Mama Tug. Getting my messages set to all. All right, we got Zini, Art Knight, Laura. And that's all we got so far. All right, let's get straight on into it. We're going to get feeding with the fishes. And I honestly don't have anything planned for the evening. Hadn't really put any thought into tonight. In fact, I didn't even remember to post the link until about 5 minutes ago. I've also taken to, when feeding the pond here, I sprinkle some food directly into the waterfall, and it carries it down into the water and swirls it around, and that way some of the other fish, because remember, I got a lot more than just the koi and the goldfish in here. Those fish aren't necessarily happy feeding from the surface as much. I got some barbs and stuff in there, some live bears. While the live bears don't mind eating from the surface, barbs don't traditionally do that. And so by just flushing some of the stuff straight into the pond like that, it gets it down into there, into the bottom, and pretty soon the pond's going to be all murky. And I will say, when I came in to turn the lights on this morning, I noticed a light, sort of fragrant smell, smelled like flowers, and I stuck my nose on them, and sure enough, those two peace lilies that are in bloom right now actually have a delicate little fragrance on them. So I've probably already overpowered it by doing a couple of hits of weed down here, but I could smell it when I came down this morning. And speaking of hits of weed, we're going to start the evening off by lighting a cone. Yeah, it's not, I mean, there are some fish that are designed by nature to feed from the surface, but there are some where it can be really problematic if they're feeding from the surface too often. They gulp air and it winds up getting into their swim bladder. Fish have a tube that runs from sort of the back of their mouth into where their swim bladder is. And the human equivalent from evolution, it's all the same equipment that evolved into our eustachian tubes, the tubes that drain from our ears down into our throat. Well, in fish, they don't have ears and you know, all that kind of stuff. And so those tubes actually still do function, but they function to move air in and out of their swim bladder. And so if they're gulping too much air, in the same way that if you're like eating too fast, you wind up like swallowing air and you have to burp it up later. If they eat too fast, it pushes air down into those tubes and can actually fill their swim bladder up with air, and that's not good for them either. At least that's what I've always understood. I'll have to double check and look into that anatomy now. I know I read about that with the fancy goldfish and that being problematic. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's been a while since I read that. I might not be 100% accurate on that. So I will look into that and I will get back to you and correct myself if I was wrong. But it's something like that. It's got something to do with gulping air. Will ultimately end in swim bladder inflation. Hey, dude. Robert, coming in early tonight. Cheers, everybody. We're actually smoking another cone tonight. I guess I should probably crack open a window in here, too. You can see how the smoke is just hanging in the air. It's not even moving. So, actually, keep watching that. See what happens when I open the window back here, how quickly it starts moving. I do have the fan on in the other room, but I got the basement steps open, so it's bringing air in from upstairs. Oh yeah, that's some cold ass air coming in. It's like 55 degrees out or something. I'll have to fire up the space heater here in a little while. But I've already got it in position, so that won't be an issue. Well, I don't know how much that smoke's moving from me walking past it or how much of it's moving, but I can actually feel cool air blowing onto me already. So it's definitely moving through the room. Oh, nice, Robert. All right, let's keep moving along. Hey, gamer, how are you this evening? I have already consumed my mushroom juice for the evening. I drank it about 10 minutes before we went live. I still have a nice grapey flavor in my mouth. If I can figure out which one of these buttons to unscrew, get you up here where you can see. And I think today we're going to stick with the flake food. And you see how in this tank I deliberately swirl it around to get it into the water. I've not yet ever fed these goldfish anything floating on the surface. And knock on wood, I haven't had any swim bladder issues, which supposedly these fancy goldfish are notorious for. It's kind of like the pug dog thing I was talking about with somebody the other day. And like, once again, humans have just fucked up an animal because we thought it looked neat. And so these fish don't really function properly. They have the really, really short, that tube I was talking about. It's really, really short because their bodies are all squished up. And they often have health issues and run into all kinds of different problems because they've been deliberately fucked up by genetics to make them look like that. So far, I've not had any problems with any of those fish. Well, not swim bladder related issues. I did have some sort of white growth on the side of Wednesday for a little while. And then I medicated the tank and it cleared up. So whatever it was, it wasn't that problematic. I just medicated and everything was fine. But so far, no issues with swim bladder. And again, I chalk that up to never having fed them at the surface. I guess we actually could do a little bit of work tonight. I did cut some filter pads for the very tank we're looking at. So if somebody reminds me, because I'm sure I'll forget, but the mushroom juice will be on me by then. But by the time we get done with all the feeding, I'm going to go back to that tank and we'll go ahead and redo the filters. I guess I could do them now, but I'm smoking a joint and I don't want to disturb myself while I'm doing that. That would be rude. Now, damn it. I just ashed on the floor. I meant to ash in the pond, but I missed. All right, looks like I'm going to be doing a lot of work tonight again, aren't I? Well, Zini, you can be very disturbing, so I understand that. All right, let's move on to the next tank. Like I said, we're not wasting time tonight. I don't feel like walking around the room feeding a bunch of shit. We're going to sit down, chat, hang out, call it a night. All right, as usual, we will start with some Vibra Bites. Angelic like. Angelic means angel-like already, so you don't have to add the like part on the end. Angelic already includes it. Um, well, I would definitely lean you towards angelic before I would put you towards demonic. So yeah, I'll go with angelic. Zengelic. Eugene. No, I've never heard that. The albino or yellow sailfin molly was the sexiest fish out there. I don't even know why anybody would say that. I think, well, I don't know. Let's think about what makes a fish sexy. On second thought, let's not. When did you ever say you were demonic? You didn't. I'm saying you're not. If we're, yeah, let's not. Let me get the algae wafers in there. If you're talking about being angelic, then the obvious comparison would be, demonic. So, on the scale between angelic versus demonic at the other end of the spectrum, where do you fall in between? I would definitely put you closer to angelic than demonic. I feel confident in saying that. Yeah, this is the good stuff. They like the algae wafers more than the Viber bites. And that cichlid continues to just grow and grow. He's looking awesome, too. I'm really happy with him. He still seems to seed ground to flow when she's agitated, but it doesn't really bother him, and she doesn't really get too fussy when she's agitated. She just kind of chases people away a little bit. So I've never really had an issue with the cichlids in the tank. But as he matures, starts growing into adulthood, I don't know if it'll be the same dynamic. I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping they don't fight in there. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to you. Damn, Zini. I think I've said nicer stuff than that to you before. Whoa, I don't know what that means. I hope you're not having some sort of attack while you're trying to type. What was I thinking about today? Last night I was thinking of story time to tell. Actually, it's not really an appropriate story to tell. I was talking to someone else, and I'd mentioned to them about how twice in my life I've had a gun stuck in my face. And I was reminiscing about those two incidents, and I decided one of those incidents would be suitable enough to talk about, but I'm not in the mood. I don't feel like talking about guns. Oh, you were referring to Zini. All right. Well, as long as you weren't having some kind of fit or something when it happened. You had me worried for a minute there. Well, I've worked my way about halfway through this joint now. I've had to light it 4 times, but we're getting there. I ashed in the pond, and one of the little minnows swam up and ate it. I'm assuming they spit it back out once they tasted it. Oh, thank you, Dade. Appreciate it. Cichlids versus tetras versus barbs. I'm guessing you're asking like my opinion about them or preferences or whatever. Yeah, I was going to say they're all kind of their own thing. And honestly, I wouldn't really try to compare the cichlids with the tetras because they sort of serve different purposes in the tank. The tetras are like little schooling fish. I think of cichlids as being more standalone. They're much larger, sort of a different category of fish in the tank. But the barbs do sort of serve that same niche within the tank as the tetras do. You can get a little group of tetras, or you can get a little group of barbs. And in that case, my preference has always been tetras. I've tried barbs over the years, and I've had a few different types. I like the cherry barbs. I had good experience with them. In fact, I have cherry barbs in my pond right now. You never see them because they're really dark red and they swim around down at the bottom, but I see them occasionally and they are still in there. Tiger barbs, I tried on a couple occasions when those emerald green tiger barbs first came out. I loved them and I tried a little group of them. They did okay, but I had them in a tank with an angelfish and I found out pretty much immediately that that was a terrible idea. So I moved the angelfish, and then the barbs lived out their life in my 40, the next tank we're going to be looking at. And when they died off, you know, I just, I'm not into like aggressive fish, semi-aggressive, and depending on the type of aggression, I can tolerate. But any really aggressive fish, see how Flo's giving kisses to my pleco there? She's so sweet. Look at her giving him all those kisses. Nom, 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 nom. You know, a flow like what we just saw with Flo there, sort of a get off my lawn kind of fish that just chases people away from their little corner and then swims back to it. I don't mind that kind of aggression, but the kind of aggression you get from like a red tail shark that will just relentlessly hunt down the fish that it hates and will just kill it eventually. Like that kind of aggression, I typically don't keep those kinds of fish. I do have a couple of, you know, I got a red tail shark and a rainbow shark. But otherwise, I don't really have any of those kind of fish. But the worst kind of aggression and the worst kind of fish for me is the biters and the nippers. And that's the way the barbs are. They're not really aggressive in the sense that they'll chase people away from their territory necessarily, but they'll just bite the shit out of them. They'll feed off of their fins, and they'll you know, if you've got any kind of slow moving, long finned fish, it will bite the shit out of it, and it'll eventually kill the fish from chewing its fins off. And so that to me is just, that's a deal breaker. I don't want that kind of fish at all. So I haven't even thought about keeping tiger barbs in, I don't know, years. Cherry barbs, again, I like the cherry barbs. I did have some rosy barbs. I had them in my pond too. I really like the rosy barbs. They were cool. And I know some people call them the roseline sharks, but Denison barbs are one that I've always wanted to keep. But I would like to get a group of them. And again, to get decent quality ones, you're going to pay $15 a piece for them. And I can't afford to go out and buy 6 of those, you know, or 5 of those. So one day, Denison barbs or, you know, roseline sharks, whatever you want to call them, that's on my wish list one day. The Bosmani rainbow fish is on my wish list. Like a realistic wish for the list, like something I intend to get at some point. There's a few fish out there that someday I would like to get. Oh, tetras are least likely to fuck things. I read that as tetras are at least likely to fuck things, and I was like, my tetras don't go around fucking things. But then I realized, like, yeah, they do, each other. And I get baby tetras all the time, which is another bonus. I haven't kept barbs long enough to know whether barbs will just sort of naturally breed in your tanks. But my tetras do all the time. At least my diamonds and my Buenos Aires. In my 55, I'm always finding little baby tetras swimming around in there. But as far as them in there, like, you know, humping the woodwork and stuff like that, I don't ever really see them doing that. Just each other, and that's okay. Excuse me. Um, Cichlids, on the other hand, are kind of problematic too. I limit myself on which cichlids I keep, although I say that, but I do keep a lot of them in a roundabout sort of way. Angelfish are cichlids, discus are cichlids, flow that you're looking at right there. My spotted tilapia is a cichlid. I've got that pearl cichlid in there. I've actually got 3 cichlids in that tank. I've got that jewel cichlid in that tank as well. So there are some lesser aggressive cichlids, but aggression isn't the only issue with cichlids. There are a lot of cichlids out there that are in the earth eater category, and are like ravenously vegetarian and will eat the shit out of or dig up any plants you have. And so the cichlids can actually be problematic in other ways. If you're going to have big cichlids in a tank or larger cichlids in a tank, you kind of have to make sure you set it up for them. You're going to have to probably forego plants, do larger rocks and pieces of wood, stuff like that. You'll have to provide them with lots of gravel they can pick up and spit back out because they love doing that. It's their favorite thing in the world to do. And then, of course, like I say, you run into the aggression. And then there's also size. There's a variety of smaller cichlids out there that you can choose from. But the vast majority of cichlids are, 6, 7, 8 inches or larger. So that kind of limits you on space. You'd have to have a tank suitable for the cichlids. That kind of limits you a bit. I don't know. I know the Chinese algae eater will. I've had personal experiences with that. I had a Chinese algae eater kill 2 of my angelfish, or kill one and severely damage another, and I'm sure radically shortened its life. Morning. How are you doing, Driftwood? Yeah, I love the silver dollars with the way the disco balls flash off the silver dollars. I think of them as my police fish. They got the flashing red and blue lights on their side. If they sit in just the right spot, you'll see a green one too. It is red, blue, and green. You just don't see the green very much. It just looks like I got red and blue lights shining around the room mostly. So the Chinese algae eater can be aggressive. More so, they feed off the slime coat of other fish, especially flat-bodied fish like angelfish or something like a gourami. And so it's not aggression necessarily. They're just trying to eat. And they're not trying to eat your fish. They feed off the slime coat. But that's like saying something feeds off your skin. It's not trying to kill you. It just eats the skin off your body. You're still going to die. The fish can't have their slime coat eaten off their body. That slime coat protects them. And of course, mine got scraped so badly. It scraped the scales away. It scraped into the flesh and everything else before I figured out what the hell was happening. So I'm not a big fan of the Chinese algae eaters either. And they get very large. They can get 7 or 8 inches. Mine got to close to 9. But I had it in a 125 for the last 5 years of its life. So I'm a no on the Chinese algae eater as well. Flying foxes, I've never had. I think they're gorgeous. But I get mixed reviews about how effective they are at eating algae and stuff like that. I've always gone with the Siamese algae eaters, which are less attractive, but very similar to the flying foxes. But they're amazing at destroying algae in your tank. So I've always gotten the Siamese algae eaters, and I've never had a flying fox. But that's another one that I wouldn't mind trying. I've never heard anything about the flying foxes being aggressive, though. They very well may be. I just don't know. All right, said hello to Driftwood. Yeah. You could whip up an AI real quick of having 2 fish making out. We get back into the sexy fish category. I hope that's not going to be a theme tonight. My mushrooms haven't even kicked in yet. I'm almost done this joint, though. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. Oh, speaking of nitty gritty, nobody guessed my music the other night, so I'm not going to bring that band up again. But Nitty Gritty is the name of a song from the band I listen to frequently, which got me thinking about music, which will allow me to introduce tonight's musical challenge if anybody wants to guess who I was listening to. Usually we wait for Steve so he can give some ridiculously wrong answer, but we're not going to tonight. All right, I'm calling it good on this joint. That's close enough to done for me. I'm getting spoiled with these cones having a filter on the end. Don't have to hold that stupid roach in my hand. Although I did just smoke a roach right before we went live. I have a way of smoking roaches that I don't know. I've been doing it ever since I was a kid. I didn't think it was anything particularly clever. It just seemed kind of natural to me. But if you're familiar with what a roach stone is, how that you stick the end of the joint like into a stone and you can hit on it, it's a similar idea to that. I always just take my roach and I sort of put it down into my bong hitter as upright and kind of in the hole as possible. And then I just light the end of the roach on fire. I don't torch it like a bong hit. I just light the roach. And then you just hit on it. And if you get it in there just right, where you're really drawing air down through the roach, you just do bong hits off of it. And you can, get really big roach hits, which are amazing. If you like smoking roaches, they're really, really potent. And then you can just, while you're holding it, the roach will keep burning just like it's in a little roach stone or something. When you're ready for your next hit, you just hit it again. So you can literally just sort of smoke the roach through your bong. And of course, you're getting the bong hit version of it. So it's not only huge, but it's also been smoothed out by the water and everything else. So it's a great way to get rid of roaches if you don't want to, try to smoke them with a roach clip or something and you have a bong. I've never had the dojo loaches either. I've got coolie loaches, which are similar, but I believe the dojos get much larger. Yeah, a bigger version of the coolie loach, exactly. Yeah, my pond is flowing really good right now, both in volume and pathway. It changes all the time in the same way natural streams and rivers and stuff change based on how the muck and stuff builds up. So we got a little bit of water flow coming over here up top. So we get a lot of like gurgling and splashing from the air pockets created by the stone there. But when we come down to this end, here, let's go around this way. We'll get a better look at it. We've got a lot of water coming off this one side, but it also does spread all the way around, and we get it running down, all the way over here. There's even water dripping all the way back here, dripping off the back. But for the most part, the main volume's coming in right there, and it's giving us lots of little splashing and bubbling. And I put a pretty sizable pump on that. It moves a lot of water. I don't even remember how many gallons an hour it moves, but it's a lot. I think that moves almost as much water as my outdoor pump in my outdoor pond. All right, let's move it on to the next tank. And I must say, it is a nice soothing sound where I sit in my fort. It's just like it's not like a hallway, but at the bottom of the basement steps, it's like an open area and you can go in 4 different directions. And so you can come into the doorway here, or if I go out and I just walk straight across that little open spot, I'm right into my lab. And so the sound goes right through the doorway, and all night long I hear the gentle, merry tinkle of water splashing in the other room like I'm outside by a pond or a little stream or something. And then, of course, the noise from the outside coming in through the window, all the crickets and night noises and everything. I feel like I'm camping. I've said it a million times, though. I practically live in the woods. It kind of is like camping, except I get to sleep in a house instead of outside. God, this could be like pulling teeth tonight, isn't it? All right, so far I'm doing good with the comments and questions you're throwing at me. I'm juicing them up, I'm giving you a lot for your money. So keep them coming. Like I said, I don't really have anything on my mind. Although once the mushrooms start kicking in, I'm sure whatever is on my mind will be all swirling around anyway. I'm just noticing that Gilgalad is at the surface of the water, and I thought maybe he was dead, but I think he's actually lying in the plants just right up against the surface, the way the betta fish like to do. So I don't know how he's still hanging on. I saw him again yesterday, and he was lying on the bottom, and he looked like not only was he on death's door, he was well inside and inspecting the umbrella stand. Um, but he's still in there, and he's up at the top now. So maybe he is floating at the top, but he sure looks like he's just sitting there like the betta fish do. Anyway, as I said before, I'm just going to let him father fish his way back into that tank anyway, and I'm not even going to worry about. I guess if I see him dead floating at the surface, I'll scoop him out. But otherwise, I'm just going to let the shrimp have him. I got some new flavor. I got tired of the same old flavor nicotine I've been puffing on. I wanted some banana flavor. I don't know why. I just got a hunkering for some banana flavor stuff. They didn't have any, of course. Of course they didn't. But I did get Cotton Cloud, which he told me would taste like cotton candy, and it doesn't really. It's in the neighborhood. It's got like a sweet candy like flavor, but it is definitely not what I would call cotton candy flavored. This is the 55 milligram, the really strong stuff. I actually put some into my big ass sub ohm mod that I do these huge clouds off of. And I tried hitting on some of this 55 milligram nicotine salts, and it's rough. Now I didn't even try to do a huge cloud like that. I was trying to do nice gentle hits of it. The fucking huge cloud of that at 55 milligrams would probably give me a heart attack or kill me or something. So I was trying to do these gentle little puffs of it, but these little devices is what are known as mouth to lung. You just sort of pull your tongue back and fill your mouth with vapor, and then you inhale it. The big devices with the sub ohm that blow those huge clouds, those are direct to lung. You just inhale like it's a snorkel. And so doing that with those nicotine salts, it was rough. And then of course it hit my brain like a ton of bricks. It's just not designed for that kind of device. And so I did not. I'm not going to really be puffing on that one anymore. It was just kind of experiment to see what it was like. It was about what I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't pleasant. But now I know for certain, and I can say for sure I've done it. So, as I said before, depending on the kind of device you have, you got to get different kinds of nicotine juices and that sort of thing. I was going to say it's 33:33 here, but that's the time on my live stream had been running. It's 8:33 for me. All right, am I missing any comments here? Oh, I'm a big fan of duckweed. I bitch about it from time to time, but only jokingly, and I don't even really bitch about it very often. It's a good food source for my goldfish. I don't feed it to my fancy goldfish because it floats. But my pond is like a depository for all my excess duckweed. If you don't have a pond to throw all your excess duckweed in, just throw it in the fucking trash. Who cares? It's duckweed. The shit grows. It grows like faster than anything I've ever seen. You just leave a couple little spots. Like people call it aquarium herpes, because if you leave any of it, a trace of it in your tank, a week later you got the shit floating all over your surface again. So I'm a big fan of duckweed. I like the way it looks. I like the purposes it serves. It blocks some of the light. It makes the fish feel more secure. It's a food source. It's a habitat source. I am a big fan of duckweed. Oh, Ark, I doubt I will be making the outside pond larger anytime soon. I owe so much money. I just dropped $900 on my truck. Oh, I forgot to tell you all about my truck. Good news, actually. Good news, everyone. Smoke the duckweed. I'll pass on that. I have heard you can dry it out and make it into like cakes and eat it or something. I'm going to pass on that too. For those of you who remember me complaining about my truck being the weird ass truck that everything always is more expensive on because it's like the special fucking limited edition bullshit. For once, that actually paid off for me. So what I thought was wrong with the truck was exactly what was wrong with the truck. It had a bad wheel speed sensor, and it also had a bad wheel bearing. And the wheel bearing is where the real money is. And so it was going to be $1,050 was the quote to get it all done. And, I said, go ahead and do it. I got to get it fixed. You can't not have a wheel bearing on your wheel. And so when I went to pick it up, they told me that my truck is unusual in that the wheel speed sensor is actually built into the wheel bearing. And so if I had only had a bad wheel speed sensor, I would have had to replace the entire wheel bearing to replace it, which would have been $1,000 for a fucking, wheel speed sensor, which should be a couple hundred maybe at the most. But in this case, since I needed a new wheel bearing, I got the wheel speed sensor basically thrown in for free. And so they didn't have to buy that. And they reduced the price for me down to $960. So they saved me almost $100. That never happens with my truck. It's always the other way around. It's always, we thought it was going to be this, but then we found out it was your truck. And so it's going to be $300 more than that because we had to buy some special thing to make it work. Shirley. Oh no, what happened, Shirley? You have a bad day? I had a pretty good day. All we did was go to the Lowe's over in the big city of Westminster. And my wife needed a planter for some plant she got. And it really needed to be transplanted. It was getting root bound like badly. And so we drove over there just for something to do. It's all dreary and rainy and whatnot today. But other than that, I've just been hanging out. I watched a good Doctor Who. I watched an 80s, late 1980s Doctor Who last night. It's so different than the earlier ones. It's so 80s. I love the music and special effects and everything. I have no idea what all those lines and symbols and stuff are. I know what the eyeballs are at the end. I guess it's looking at something. Is that like a halved avocado? A hockey stick? Oh no, Shirley, that sucks. Doctor Who, tell the doctor what to do. I don't know what that's from, but I like it. It's got a nice ring to it. It rolls off the tongue. But last night I watched a Sylvester McCoy episode, who a lot of people do not like, and I didn't at first either, but he actually really grew on me, and I tended to like his character or the way he portrayed the Doctor. Yeah, I hope he's okay, Shirley. Yeah, this is totally not cotton candy flavor, whatever the hell they say. One of the biggest problems with Sylvester McCoy, yes, I'm going to keep talking about Doctor Who. I already fed this tank, so we're just going to go ahead and skip it. For my members the other night, I was talking about the producer, John Nathan Turner. Let's see how many people I lose over the next 5 minutes here. We already lost one. I was talking about how the producer, John Nathan Turner, kind of ruined it. Oh, man, that was already on. I've been having that on since since Friday night. Damn it. I always forget to turn that off. I put it on there so I could turn it off when I wasn't filming, and then I always forget. Anyway, I was talking about how John Nathan Turner kind of ruined it by loving it to death, and he was the one that sort of turned it into like costumes and all that stuff. And I was kind of hinted at towards the end it got really campy. Well, the costume thing was more than just like he wears the same clothes every single episode, like Fred from Scooby Doo, you know, or Shaggy, who every fucking time you ever saw them, they were dressed in the exact same clothing. These costumes almost got like silly costumes. So Sylvester McCoy, like he had big question marks on his lapels. He had a tie with question marks on it. He carried an umbrella, and the handle of the umbrella had a question mark on it. It's like, all right, dude, we fucking get it. He's the doctor. You like, why don't you just tattoo a question mark on his face or something? And so it was just kind of silly in those regards. But the story writing got good. And then Sylvester McCoy didn't really like the whole campy doctor thing and wanted to make it a little more sinister and take it back to its roots of this guy's not some friendly human. He's an alien that doesn't look at the human race quite the same way. He has his own, you know, ulterior motives, and he would manipulate people. He became he wasn't a bad doctor, but he was definitely more sinister than any of the other ones. And he was really starting to develop the character, and then it just ended like mid-season, you know, just ended one season, like right as he was really getting into his stride. He did 2 seasons, I think, and then it just came to an abrupt end. And so we never really got to find out what direction he was going to take the character. But I enjoyed the Sylvester McCoy years. Again, really, really super like 80s, late 80s, early 90s. All right, we can move on because there's not a lot going on in this tank. We only lost 3 people. Amazing. We've already seen that not a lot is going on in there, but you can see the blue at the surface there. That is the fish right in the duckweed, but he's not floating. He's lying on top of the other vegetation that's in there. Oh no, this isn't weed. This is nicotine juice. It was called Cotton Clouds, and I was told it was going to taste like cotton candy, but it does not. That's what I was talking about with the cotton candy, if that's what you're mentioning. Don't you mean we fucking corrupted him, Zini? All right, and I did tell Zini I was going to talk about my music I was listening to tonight. So at some point, we're going to play the damn music game, whether you guys like it or not. At the rate this chat's going, I'll have to think of something to talk about, so music will be a good one. The last tank we were just looking at, where you saw all this white stuff down here in the corner, those are all dead snail shells. That tank does have a lot of live snails still in it, but those are all just shells. Those are all the remains of snails. Just like you can see a few white dots and stuff down here. Those are all dead snail shells. I don't know why the word snail shells sounds weird to me, but maybe the mushrooms are kicking in. Oh yeah, the mushrooms are definitely kicking in. Fortunately, I'm going to be sitting my ass down here in just a few more minutes. I really should put my coffee down too. I made it too hot before I came down here. I wanted to drink it at like 8 o'clock and be done with it, but I overheated it and it's just getting cool enough to drink now. It's almost 9. It's good though. All right, we'll put that away now. All right, one more drink. All right, now we'll put it away. Whew, yeah, those mushrooms are definitely kicking in. I wonder how much I drank. I didn't even look at the bottle. I used my regular bottle that's got the label on it, so you can't really see the level of the juice. And I did one big mouthful and then like another little half a swig beyond that. So that should be a pretty fucking solid dose. And judging by the way I'm swaying back and forth, I'd say it probably was. Yeah, I like duckweed too. Dedge. Yeah, the snail shell is the living history, and it's calcium carbonate, so if you leave it in there it's just helping your tank buffer. So I've never bothered with it. Let me go in and get another joint while I'm thinking about it too, and then I'm going to come in and sit down, call it a night. I'm getting really tired of standing up all of a sudden. It's getting more and more challenging as well. I'm gonna have to roll some more up for later. I got 2 left, and I'm getting ready to smoke one of them, and it's not even 9 o'clock yet. Oh, I need to stand up to read for the music stuff first, so I'll do that before I sit down. All right, tonight's music was a very innovative band. In fact, they produced music in a way that had never really been done before. They used sampling in the early 80s. Let's see, when did they get started? 1983. And music sampling was new at the time. Like nobody really knew what it was or how it could be used or what to do with it. And so this band used almost entirely sampling to create a new sounding kind of music rather than, you know, having a band. It was all completely electronic and it was all done through sampling. And they were very, very influential and innovative. They were a British avant-garde and electronic group formed in early 1983. And this gives you an idea what kind of band it is. It's an engineer and producer named Gary Langan, a programmer, a keyboardist, arranger, a producer, and a music journalist. So they all got together and produced music in a very different way using this sampling. And of course, they use synthesizer and stuff like that too. The 2 songs that you might know them from is one I was talking about to Zini the other day. It's called Kiss. And it is it features Tom Jones, world famous. I just love saying the words Welsh pop star. Those words should not all be in the same sentence, but Welsh pop star. Tom Jones did a song with them called Kiss that you might remember. They also did an instrumental, which was a new version of the Peter Gunn theme song. And then the one I know mostly is Beatbox and Closer to the Edit. So if you know either of those. Nope, not Gary Newman today. Moments in Love is another one that you might recognize if you heard, but you probably wouldn't recognize the name. Beatbox, likewise, you might recognize the music, but you wouldn't necessarily know the name of it. But the Peter Gunn theme song made like top 10 here in America, and so did Kiss with Tom Jones. Those were both charted here in America. Not Emerson, Lake and Palmer. There you go, Borali. Nice one. And welcome aboard. I haven't seen your name before. The Art of Noise is who I was listening to tonight. And I do rather enjoy The Art of Noise, but you guys know me. If it's electronic or electronica music, I'm all in. And that's exactly what The Art of Noise is. Again, it was completely new at the time to do music that way. And it's very different sounding. I was trying to explain it to Zini earlier, but you just kind of listen to it to understand what the band sounds like. And again, I use the word band loosely whenever I'm talking about any of the music I listen to. Half the time, the bands I listen to is like one dude in a studio and has a couple of, vocal singers come in and do some tracks for him or something, and that's the band. All right. Of course, I forgot to turn my light on. I could leave me all spacey and splotchy with swirling lights on me, but I won't do that to you. All right. Just sold you 12. I don't know who Ron Hardy is. Did I see TK popping in there? TK, how are you this evening? Oh, if you've been here live before and I'm not remembering your name, I apologize for that, but I do my best. I can't always remember everybody that's been here and said hello before, but welcome back then, I'll say. I know this is a joint and not a cigarette, but seeing myself like on the monitor smoking just looks weird. I was a smoker for like 35 years and I quit like 15 years ago. I still smoke joints, but I stopped smoking cigarettes like almost 15 years ago. So seeing myself, smoking just looks weird. Oh, well, let me go write that name down because I will check him out if he's a DJ, electronics guy from back in the day. I'm always willing to give that a listen. All right, let me find something to write with. All right, I will definitely give that a listen later because I'm going to be down here all night, I'm sure. And that'll give me something new to listen to. I'm getting kind of tired. As much as I love Pink Floyd, I don't care whether you getting filet mignon every night. At some point, it starts to get old, and you want something different. So I've been listening to a lot of Doctor Who instead of music lately at night. How many hot dogs could I fit in there? I don't know. We'd have to do some serious math to calculate that. First thing we'd have to determine is the average size of a hot dog. I'm also happy to report that when I checked on my weed this evening before going live, make sure everybody was doing okay, didn't need any water or anything. I checked the date just to be double sure. I knew it had been about a month, but it's been exactly a month today that I put my plants in my flowering tent, and they still look fantastic. They're all completely green. There's no spots. There's not a trace of any nutritional issues. There's not a trace of any bugs or infestation. So I think I did it. I'm not out of the woods yet. I still got another month to go before they're done, and I could certainly introduce mites back into the system at some point. But as of now, a month in, it still seems as though it's completely mite free. So my stripping everything down and starting over apparently worked. So yay! And I was what, a year and a half I was fighting those bastards. Should have done that a long time ago. Almost went out. I caught it. It's hard to be conversational and smoke a joint at the same time, because if you don't hit on them fairly regularly, they go out. Yeah, I'll definitely have to give him a listen. Sorry, Zany. I know he was asking for a friend. I could ask the AI, or I could ask the computer in the other room, the Alexa machine. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that on camera. All right, well, there you go. There you go, Zany. There's an answer for you. Would I get any sponsors? Yeah, if anybody was willing to sponsor me. My channel doesn't get enough views for anybody to give a fuck about sponsoring me. I don't even probably qualify for those people that like give you a free thing and have you talk about it on the my payment is I get to keep the bullshit thing they gave me. Like, I don't even get those kind of offers. So I'm not ever going to get like a real sponsorship, but I'd jump on a real sponsorship in a heartbeat. I need money fucking badly. I would still, I'm a man of principle, so it would still have to be, I wouldn't be, telling you all to invest in gold or some dumb bullshit like that, or swearing to God, this is my favorite video game ever. I have a fucking blast playing this video game that goddamn right well I never play in my life. But yeah, if it was a product I liked and it was, some weed stuff, I'd certainly do that. I'd love to get a sponsorship from the mushroom juice. I give them free advertising every live stream because I fucking love their stuff. It's an amazing product. Again, not 100% sure what's in it. Somebody said the other night that they think that I can't remember what the name of the chemical is. But they said it's a synthetic mushroom, and it's a commonly used chemical that they use to make synthetic mushrooms. So I looked into that, looked it up, and there is a chemical out there that they use to make synthetic mushrooms, but it's like AO4 negative DMT. So it's a variant on DMT, first of all, which is what I think is in this mushroom juice. I think it is DMT. But the fake mushroom stuff is designed to mimic psilocybin. And this stuff does not in any way mimic psilocybin. This does not feel at all like a psilocybin mushroom trip. They're completely different experiences. So if this stuff is made to be the synthetic mushroom juice that's meant to, mimic a psilocybin trip, they missed, because this does not mimic a psilocybin trip. So I think that's something different. I don't think that's the ingredient that's in this mushroom. I think it's the Mimosa hostilis root bark, which contains DMT. And so ultimately, I think it's the DMT. DMT is dimethyltryptamine. So it's a common, a substance that grows in a lot of different kind of plants. But this certain root bark has a lot of it in there. It's the same stuff they use to make ayahuasca. No, the thing with marijuana, the worst that if you're smoking in the room, with it, you're going to have more issue with having stuff on your glass that you're going to wipe your glass down, you're going to brown shit on your fucking cloth. I guess technically some of that is also getting on the surface of the water, but it's such negligible amounts that it's not an issue. And as far as the active ingredients in marijuana, none of that stuff is water soluble, which is why when you smoke it through a bong, it filters out the ash and stuff like that. But all of the chemicals you want don't get absorbed in the water. They go through the water and you inhale them. So none of the THC or any of that stuff can get into the water for the fish. All it's going to be is the smoke itself, which when you get right down to it is just really, really, really super fine particles of ash. I know it sounds disgusting when you think about it like that. You're inhaling ash, but that's what smoke is. It's ash. And so ash has physical mass, and, so that could get on the surface. It also contains the other chemicals like tars and stuff like that are in there. But again, it's such a negligible amount on the surface of the water that I've never thought about it. I've never considered it once as being a concern. I'd be more concerned by spraying things like aerosol air fresheners and stuff like that. And I've never worried about doing that. I got a big ass open pond right in here, and I spray osium in the room all the time. It's never been an issue. So smoking around the tank is definitely not going to be an issue. Yeah, I like the red hot chili peppers. 42 hot dogs. They're going to be big goddamn hot dogs. Although that is the ultimate number of hot dogs. No, I'm not going to mail you the hot dogs. That would be expensive. All right, I got a message from somebody. Let's see what it was. Way down here on the bottom. No, it's not. Let me see what I got going on here. Oh, where am I trying to click on? There it is. I'm doing my own thing for a minute while you guys think of something to ask me. Oh, it's a whole song. No, I'm not going to watch a song right now. Maybe we'll try that one later too. Where are you, Dade? Mike, you want me to rub a little dirt on my belly? You want me to squeal like a pig? That's still one of the best scenes ever in any movie. I know everybody makes fun of it or anything, but if you actually watch the scene, it's really intense. And I will still say, hats off to Ned Beatty for just fucking 100% going in on that and just leaving nothing on the table. That was awesome. Fantastic scene. It's not often you can say that about a scene where a man's assaulting another man, making him squeal like a pig while he does it. But it's an amazing scene. A lot of people probably did have context scene. It's from a movie. It's a classic movie. I doubt you've seen it, but it's called Deliverance. And as soon as he said that, you got them pretty lips, boy, I knew exactly where he was going with it. It's classic. It really is. It's an old Burt Reynolds movie. It's fucking awesome. Yeah, again, the whole movie was fantastic. If you guys have ever heard the dueling banjos, that's from the movie Deliverance. It's a guy has his guitar out, and he's like some inbred kid up on the porch is plucking on his banjo. So the guy starts plucking on his guitar, matching the notes the guy just played on his banjo. And so every time he does it, the kid with the banjo makes it more complicated. You know, and the guy on the guitar just eventually just gets lost and he can't keep up with the banjo or whatever. And so it wasn't the kid actually playing it. It was a real banjo player was behind the kid with his arms up through playing the banjo. How he did that makes it extra super amazing. But you don't even have to watch the scene. If you just listen to the dueling banjos, musically, it's amazing. It starts out really slow and it just builds and builds and builds. And by the end of it, the banjo is just going so fast, your ears can hardly keep up with it. The whole movie was just a fucking great movie. It's really intense though. It's not a fun movie by any means. But if you've never seen Deliverance, you should check it out. I think it's like 1974 or 1975. Burt Reynolds, he's like 25 years old or something in it. I don't listen to Yellow. I am familiar with Yellow, but I do listen to New Order a lot. I listen to a lot of new wave stuff. We've reached total corruption. He's done. It's over. There's no hope. All hope has died, Zini. Oh well. I've often wondered over my life. I'm going to get philosophical for a minute because I'm on mushrooms. Whether I've ultimately been a good influence, net positive, or a bad influence, net positive, because I've really led a lot of people astray over the years. I've known a lot of people that didn't do drugs until after they met me, or they didn't drink heavily until after they met me. You know, but I've also helped a lot of people in a lot of odd ways, and you know, so I don't know when you know. On the scales of justice where I fall, whether I'm a net positive or a net negative to this world. I'm mostly enjoying myself, so that's all right, and that's all that really matters as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, within reason, obviously. I'm not trying to hurt anybody else, but as long as I'm doing all right, I'm okay. Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up unless you did, Zini. I've already corrupted poor Zini. Zini's going to start vaping now. He's 22 years old. He's never smoked or vaped or anything in his life. And now he's going to start vaping because of me. So, and I even wonder, getting super deeply philosophical, I wonder about a guy who, I've told this story before. I'm not trying to make himself sound like a hero, as you'll see by the end of it, because I still don't know how I feel about this. This was some dude I knew used to be fucked up. I mentioned the other night, I talked about a guy that would fall asleep when he smoked crack, but he would bounce off the walls when he did dope. This guy called me up one night at like midnight or something on a work night, and he just needed to talk. And I just talked to him on the phone all fucking night long. I didn't get off the phone like 4 a.m. And later he came back and told me that he was going to commit suicide that night. And he had called a couple people already just because he needed somebody to talk to. And both of them kind of blew him off and said they needed to get to bed because it was a work night. And he said, you know, if you had done that, I was going to go through with it. Or if you hadn't answered, I was going to go through with it. The fact that you talked to me all night prevented me from doing that. And again, I don't know if that's good or bad because this dude was a fucking freak. Has he killed somebody, you know, since then? Has, you know, even accidentally in a drunk driving accident? What is the end result of his life continuing after that night? You know, did terrible things happen as a result of that? Did he go on to, you know, get his shit together and go to school and become a doctor and save lives? I have no fucking idea. I haven't talked to that guy in 30 years. But I always wonder about that. That was one of those, like, you know, life could have gone, you know, the world could have gone this direction or could have gone that direction on that night, you know, and I was instrumental in which direction it went. But I don't know, you know, what was the other path, and you never will, you know, you never will. So even if it's a situation like that, or it's, you know, some simple situation, you know, if you'd have just said hello to that person or gone up to that girl at the bar or whatever, and, you know, how different might my life be? Even tiny little decisions you have no idea, if you went to work 5 minutes late one day, that you could have got in a car accident, where if you were on time, you would have missed it. So everything is one of those life circumstances where you can think about what would it have been like this way versus what would it have been like that way. That was just kind of a significant one, had like a real solid emotional impact. That's one of those sort of, like the gun in my face experiences. Those were sort of life changing. They tend to stick in the mind when you have experiences like that. So I've often wondered about, that dude and whatever the fuck happened to him. I guess I could probably look him up. I'd rather not, though. I'd rather let life's mysteries be life's mysteries. Oh, let's see. Oh, I'm enjoying the hell out of these comments tonight. Yeah, that's really good advice. That is the only way I can look at it. When you really get right down to it, I just did what was in front of me. I did the right thing. I helped somebody in need, and whatever happens beyond that, I don't feel responsible for. That's not that's not what I'm saying. I don't feel responsible for it in any way. Like I said, I did the right thing. I did what was in front of me, and I did what needed to be done. So no regrets. I just wonder. I think about a lot of things, and that's one of the things I think about from time to time. Christopher. Oh, Zini's vape he got is a purple vape. Hey, Christopher, how are you doing? All right, let me get back to working on this joint. I got to chatting. And it went out on me again, as they do. Like the two-handed drink. I knew I didn't have enough of a handhold on this 3 fingers. I help old ladies get stuff off the top shelves at the Walmart all the time. I never even think about stuff like that. Did she choke to death on that pasta I got for her today? If I hadn't have pulled that bag of pasta off the shelf for her, would she still be alive? And that's my point. My ex-wife, I'm going to tell an ex-wife story. I know you guys love my ex-wife stories because she was fucking insane. She was one of those people, first of all, that saw me as a vehicle to get out of her parents' house and raw material. She apparently didn't like anything about me, but I had a career and a house, and I was a man. And then so if she married me, she could make me into the man that she wanted me to be. And so she was that kind of person. The very, very wrong kind of. The reason I'm married to the woman I'm married to now is because she takes me as is and always has and never fucking ever tried to change a thing about me. She, even when I was wearing my skirt out in public, she never once said, "You're wearing that out in public. If that's what I want to wear out in public." She just picks up her purse and we go out in public. And she's always been like that. My ex-wife was not. She tried to control who I hung out with and how I dressed and just all of it. And she always used to try to restrict the way I spoke with people because, like, first of all, she imagined everything. She was fucking insane, like I say. So it didn't matter who I talked to or what I said to them. She would find something that I'd said tie it to some sort of traumatic event in that person's life, no matter how remote, and then say, you shouldn't have brought that up. That's really going to upset that person. You know, like I'll talk about how, you know, we sure had a lot of rain today. And then afterwards, she's like, oh, I can't believe you said that to her. Don't you know that she had a cousin that drowned in a fucking, you know, thunderstorm 40 years ago? No, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I'll never bring up rain again to that person. You know, like it was always something, you know. I don't know what made me think of that. It's just the idea of, I guess, like everything has some effect somewhere to somebody or something. And if you're going to try to worry about all that stuff, it's just, you can't have a conversation with somebody because anything could be something that in some way affected them. And you know, at some point in their life, she was fucking crazy. Our divorce lasted longer than our actual marriage did. That's how crazy she was. I don't miss her. I haven't seen her in 25 years either. That's all right. If I'm lucky, I'll make another 25. All right, where was I? Your starter wife? Everybody needs a starter wife. Well, considering she left me for another woman, I don't know how concerned about the sex she was. And yes, it was great because it was me. I don't try to change you, Zini. I love you just the way you are. If you come here, you can just pick them up at this local store. I used to love my slingshots when I was a kid. Um, I actually might still have my crossbow. Not my crossbows. That was the last word I just read, and it's stuck in my brain. I probably, well, do I? I don't know if I do or not. I used to have two slingshots when I was a kid. One I know I still have because I got it from, I'm not going to tell you the story who he was, but it was an old man close to the family and all that. And I was allowed to pick something, you know, when he died that I could keep as a memento. And it's a very super, super basic slingshot made out of a hand carved piece of wood. It's, you know, yay tall and it's just a forked branch, but he hand carved it and it's a beautiful slingshot. It doesn't have any band tied to it or anything. It's just a piece of wood. I know I have that upstairs because it's on my desk in the office. I have it sitting in my little thing. But I had a wrist rocket, the kind that wraps around. It's got the bar that goes over your wrist, so you don't have to worry about doing that. And you put surgical tubing on it for your for the band. And I used to fucking love that. They were a blast when I was a kid. It's a cross between like throwing rocks really hard and shooting a BB gun, you know. And what we would do, Bob, there you are. Thank you. Shit, what was I getting ready to say? Oh, right. What we would do is we would go up to the train tracks that ran through Patapsco State Park, and the trains that carried the iron ore would go through there on that set of tracks. And back in the day, they just didn't give a fuck if the cars were leaky and stuff fell through the cracks and stuff like that. And then if the train ever stopped and there was a leaky spot, it would leave a pile of these things. And what they were was the iron ore would get shipped in like pellet form. They'd melt it down and sort of roll it, and it would form into these balls that were roughly about the size of a marble, from a small marble to the large size marble. And you could find just thousands of them lying on the ground along the railroad tracks. And we'd go out there with bags, and we would just fill bags of these things up. And it was iron ore, so they were metal, they were heavy, but they were kind of like rocks at the same time. They weren't perfectly round. They were roughly round, and they made fantastic slingshot. We didn't buy slingshot like the steel balls and stuff. We would go up to the train tracks and get these iron ore pellets, and that's what we used, for our slingshot. It was awesome. Yeah, my power went out the other day for a minute. But it came right back on. It was out just long enough for me to wonder whether or not I should go out and fire the generator up. And I was like, and then it came back on. So it was no big deal. But I was thinking we were going to have to run the generator. We had that storm come through. Janice said it was supposed to be a nor'easter. And my wife also said that the people in the news were saying it was going to be a nor'easter. But we got a little bit of rain. I think we're supposed to get some more rain tomorrow. It hasn't even been particularly windy. It was a little breezy on Friday, but that was about it. The Eastern Shore, however, every time I've looked at the radar, the Eastern Shore just looks like it's getting hammered. So I don't know whether we're going to get more rain tomorrow or not, but we need it. All right, I am going to fire my joint back up. And I think I'm going to have another swig of mushrooms so I can get out of here around 10. And that'll be kicking in right when I'm rolling out. All right, let me find it first. I'd actually poured some off into a different container to measure it out yesterday. That's probably a little more than I want to drink. I guess I don't have to drink all of it. I'm going to top it off with some water first, though. I drank it straight syrup style earlier. It's just so thick. Good flavor, but you concentrate it like that, and it's a little rough. I was thinking about you earlier, Bob. I mentioned you to Zini. I know you love my Freudian slips, and I sent one to him in text form. That was a fucking doozy. I'm not even going to repeat it, but I did laugh and say, I wish Bob was here, because you would have appreciated that one. You would have put that one up on a fucking plinth. It was so bad I caught it before I even sent it, but I thought, oh, that's so perfect. I have to send this. I can't not send this. And so I sent it. But it was fantastic. But yeah, I did think about you because of that. I know you love my little Freudian slips. God damn it, this joint went out again. I think I'm going to call it good on this joint. Yeah, you get out in the Midwest, you don't have nothing slowing that wind down. That is one fortunate thing about me living in the woods. It's a little scary because of the trees and the branches that can come down, hit our cars, hit the house. We had a pine tree fall on the house one time and ruin our roof. But we're down in a little hollow and we got trees just all around us. So it's got to be really fucking windy for the wind to get down to where I am. You live out in the plains and it just fucking comes across like a freight train. Nothing even slows it down. Yeah, I've got so many tanks and so much stuff, and we've had a few power outages that last for a few days. And so I can't get by with, well, my fish is down laying on the, so he's still alive. He's definitely still alive. Um, I can't go around replacing batteries and like portable air stones. And again, my tanks are so big. And so I got a generator years ago that was big enough to like get me by on like cripple running. I could run the fish room. We could keep the refrigerator running and maybe a light or two, but not a lot more. And when I had issues with that generator, instead of spending money to get it fixed, I just bought a new generator, and I bought one big enough to just power my whole house now. So when the power goes out, I just fire the generator up and it's life is normal while the generator's running. I did see a generator today, speaking of which, at the Lowe's while we were there. And I had to do a double take because the box was like, yay big by yay big. It looked like you could just picked it up yourself and carried this thing. Um, and it was a Generac generator that was a 1250 kilowatt startup and a 9,500 rather. I think I said that wrong. 12,500 kilowatt startup and a 9,500 watt run. It could spike basically if something kicks on and you're running at the 9,500. Peaking it out. There is enough for a spike. Like if your refrigerator kicks on, there's a spike all of a sudden, then it goes right back down. So it will peak up to 1,200 or 12,500. And it was in this little fucking box. That's the size of my generator. My generator, depending on whether I run it on gasoline or propane, propane gives it a little less power. But the gasoline you have to replace every few months and that sort of thing. So each has its benefits. But when I run it on gasoline, which is what I do, I get 9,500 peak, and then it spikes to 11,500. So that Generac was more powerful than mine, and I swear to God, I could have picked this thing up by myself. Mine's got wheels on it, and it is technically a portable generator. It's for like big work sites and stuff, and you can lift one end up and roll it on the wheels. But you ain't picking it up and putting it in the back of your truck by yourself. It'd take 2 men and a boy to do that. So yeah, I don't know what was up with this Generac. Maybe it's just real. I don't know, but it was really compact. I couldn't believe how small that thing was. It was awesome. It was $1,100 though, so I only paid like $675 or $700 or something for mine. But getting a generator is not a bad idea if you've got a lot of stuff and you're somewhere where the power is likely to go out for a while. Yeah, it's a shame he missed it. All right, just getting caught up here. Iceman, how are you doing this evening? All right. Coming in not too late, but we're not going to be running too long tonight. So say hello to everybody. And for those of you who don't know him, Iceman is the guy who bought me these discus. So you can thank Iceman for my discus because I still appreciate that after all this time. So thank you again. I know I've said that a million times now, but I really do appreciate it. Oh, you didn't know that, Zini? What's it been, like 3 years now? I know it was roughly this time of year, wasn't it? Like October or something, or late summer. So I guess they're 3 years old now, or has it been 4? Because time just means nothing to me anymore. It goes by so fast. That's another thing I was thinking about today. I was looking at people putting out their Halloween decorations, And I was thinking about how when I was a kid, it used to make sense to me. Like you'd put up the Christmas decorations, and to me, they were just up for like ever. And, finally they would come down, in the early January, first week in January or something. Now as an adult, I think, why the fuck do you waste your time putting those Christmas ornaments up? You're just gonna have to take them right back down. Like the 6 weeks or something that they're gonna be up is just gone. And that was supposed to be a snap, but it didn't work. They're just gone. And then you got to take all that shit back down again. Like when you were a kid, remember how long summer vacation was? The summer lasted forever. Now it's just gone in a blink of an eye. Of course, I'm talking to my older viewers. The older you get, the faster life goes by. At this point, it's getting fucking blurry. It's been at least 3. It might even be 4. Am I a fan of Ice Ice Baby? No, not really. Well, I have lost 2 of them. We lost the first one due to bullying fairly early on until I figured out what was going on. And then the one that went into the 55, who had also been bullied, really recovered nicely and lived for quite a long time. And then one day it just took ill. Sometimes fish do that. They just start not looking right, and eventually he wound up dying in there. So I have lost 2 of them, but the other 8 are still fully alive and well. I do have one that still gets kind of bullied. This one over here in the corner that you can kind of see shine away from my finger. He's small. His color's never very bright. And as much as I hate to do it, I just sort of leave him in there because I assume if I take him out, they'll just find another one. And if I take that one out, they'll find another one. And so he's just kind of my sacrificial discus that just kind of gets picked on by the other ones a little bit. But other than that, the other ones all still look really good and they're healthy. They seem to have kind of topped out with their growth. They don't really seem like they're getting much bigger. But again, if they're 3 to 4 years old now, they would have gone through their initial growth spurt. That's the period of time when everybody tries to really grow the shit out of them if they're going for those huge discus. I wasn't concerned with that. In fact, I deliberately tried to avoid it. So I'm very happy with the way they turned out. I was worried when I put them in there. I've seen some dinner plate sized discus, and I thought, fucking 10 of them. I know it's a 125 gallon tank, but I got a lot of shit going on in here, and 10 dinner plate sized fish might be a bit much. And so I've always kept the temperature lower than you would think for discus. I keep it under 80 degrees. And I've never really fed them a ton. I've given them plenty of food to grow up healthy. But that's all I did. I didn't try to maximize their growth. If you run the temperature really warm, it speeds up their metabolism. And the metabolism is basically how fast they're turning food into fish. And so if that metabolism's cranking, they're burning through that food. You can give them a lot of food and really turn a lot of fish food into fish. And when they're in that growth spurt at a nice warm temperature and they're getting lots of protein, that's how you max out the size. And this works for all fish, by the way. If you really want your fish to grow to its maximum potential, keep it as warm as you're comfortable with. Give it lots of food when it's young and it's in that growing period. Because once it tops out of that growing period, the growth rate really begins to slow down. They do grow indefinitely. Fish will grow right up until they're dead. They grow right up until they don't anymore. But as they get older, that rate of growth slows down more and more and more. So if you really want to max out their size, you got to kind of jack them up early and get them big and then let them go from there. And I deliberately didn't want to do that because I didn't want huge discus. Now, I don't know if this species would necessarily get that big anyway, but or this strain of them, whatever you want to call it, this cultivar is the way I think of them because I'm a gardener. But this particular paint job and this hybrid or whatever, I don't know what their maximum potential might have been, but whatever it was, I didn't want to max them out. So I'm completely thrilled with these, and I often recommend discus to everybody. I know they're pricey to buy, but they're fantastic fish. I really love them. Yeah, that's kind of what I set out to. That's what I hoped to do anyway. When I set out, I was terrified that they were all going to die. But you're the one that reassured me that they'd be fine, and you were right, they were. So I did exactly what I said I was going to do. You knew when you gave them to me, they were just going to go in a regular tank and get treated like regular fish, and they did fine. Yeah, I went with all blue ones. Some of them have kind of the stripes on them, and then some of them are just all blue completely. And then some of them have the red pattern mixed in with them. But blue was the overall theme that I wanted to go with. I've had a bunch of people over the years give me grief about it and said, "Oh, you should have mixed up the colors, or you should have got this, you should have got that." And I'm not going to lie, there's 30 of them that I'd love to have because there's so many. It's kind of like angelfish. They don't make ugly ones, they're all gorgeous. And so I would love to get some of those really vibrant colored discus, some of those gold ones, and the bright yellows and bright oranges and stuff. But I wanted blue. I thought about it, and I wanted to go with a theme, and I wanted them all to be the same sort of color. I wanted it to look like a cohesive school rather than what I think of as like a candy dish. All the different colors and one of each. And I don't really like that look. It's kind of the same thing when I look in a African cichlid tank that has 30 fish, and every single one of them is a different kind of fish than the other one. I feel like I'm looking at a candy dish, or a gumball machine or something. It's pretty to look at, but it's not anything I'd want in my house necessarily. All right, cheers, everybody. I'm gonna drink some more mushroom juice. I'll drink half the bottle now, so that'll be about half of what was originally in there. Yeah, that is another down shot to the discus. You need to keep them in a fairly large tank. I guess if you kept the discus singly, you could maybe, if you kept them fairly small like this, you could get away with like a 20-gallon tank. But that would be kind of iffy. That would be questionable if you could do the 20-gallon tank. Maybe a 20 long with not a lot of stuff cluttering it. They don't need a lot of room to swim around, but they do swim around more than you'd think. They don't just hang in the air motionless like you see in a lot of tanks. Typically, the reason you see them hanging in the air motionless is because they're in big, stark, empty tanks with nothing but a sponge filter in the bottom and bare glass, and they just kind of huddle in fear together. You put them in a tank that's more like an environment, and you can see they move around, they drift around, they poke around in the weeds, and they feed off of the bottom, and they just behave like normal fish. So they do need some room to fish. But they're not like darters, they're not like the sharks and stuff that need a long 55 or something to go back and forth. But you also can't put them in a little square box where they just hang there all day either. They got to be able to, move around and do their thing. But I do love them. Oh, you're in a one bedroom in New York City? Is that about $2,000 a month? I couldn't imagine the prices. I love New York. I think it's an awesome city, but I would not want to live there. I love Baltimore. Baltimore's my home city. I grew up just on the edge of it. I didn't grow up in the city. I'm just not a city person. I kind of basically live in the woods. I don't like being around a lot of people and traffic and cars and stuff like that. But as far as cities I've been to, I fucking love New York. And the only borough I don't really know about is Staten Island. I never really did anything on Staten Island. I don't know if it's because it's mostly residential. But when I was a truck driver, I was in Manhattan. I was always out on, taking the BQE, going out to the Bronx, going out to Queens. There's a lot of warehouse districts in those areas. I fucking love the Bronx. The Bronx is awesome. I liked Queens too. But the Bronx was always my favorite. Manhattan fucking sucked. I did not like driving in Manhattan. It was neat. It was amazing to see. But drive a truck through Manhattan one time and tell me how much fun it is. So I've done that a few times, and I got that out of my system. I can say I've done that. But I couldn't imagine living there. I could not live in New York City. Well, if you've grown up there and that's kind of what you're used to and everything, then I guess that's just normal, regular, everyday life to you. Yeah, Staten Island always gets ragged on by everybody. I figured it was something like that, but again, I've just never had a reason to go out there because I never, there's no warehouses, there's no real businesses that I know of. I used to have to go out to the, what was it, RFK Airport out on Long Island. I fucking hated Long Island. Um, well, the only thing I hated about Long Island was the traffic because I always had to go out that goddamn airport, and there's like one road out and one road back, and then you're just in traffic the whole fucking time. I kind of hated Long Island. I forgot about Long Island. There are 5 boroughs. Yeah, New York is a great city. I love it. I don't, people rag on it or not. But Baltimore, I think Baltimore is a great city too. Not a huge fan of DC, but DC is a weird city. DC is one of those cities that's made up of individual neighborhoods, and some of the neighborhoods are cool. But collectively, DC is kind of a conglomeration of people that come from all over the country, kind of in the way that Florida is not really like the South. I know it's working really hard to be there, but it's where it's people from all over the country end up in Florida. Georgia's not like that. Alabama's not like that. And so DC is not really like a normal city. It's a city that's made from people that come from everywhere, except it's a political city. And so the people that come from everywhere are, politicians and aides and lobbyists and law firms and, think tank agencies, and it's all that kind of stuff in DC. So DC's got a weird vibe to it. The city sucks to navigate. It sucks to drive around in. I was actually thinking about DuPont Circle today. Anybody out there ever do DuPont Circle? You know what DuPont Circle is? It's not a roundabout. A roundabout doesn't have traffic signals. Everybody merges and just goes in and goes around. A traffic circle has stoplights or stop signs or some, you stop, these people go, and you go back around to the next stage and stop again. That's a traffic circle. And DuPont Circle, I think, is either 4 or 5 lanes wide. It's insane. And every time I've ever been through DuPont Circle, it's been at fucking lunchtime, and it's been in a tractor trailer. I've never gone around DuPont Circle in an automobile. It's always been in a tractor trailer. And if you get in there on the inside lane and you got to get out because you need to go down that road over there, if you're in a tractor trailer, it's not only your blind side if you're driving in a straight line and you can see down the length of your truck. When you're turning left, your truck is bent and you just see air. You don't see anything of your truck. And so merging left, merging to the outside lane while you're going around a circle is really challenging, knowing whether cars are there or not. And at lunchtime in DuPont Circle, there's fucking cars there. There's just always cars there. There's never not cars there. And so you get into that on the inside lane, and I might go around it 2 or 3 times, working my way out at each traffic light before I would get around to the outside lane so that I could make my right-hand turn and go down whatever fucking, road or avenue I needed to go down. Oh, God, I hated DC too. I hate DC probably as much or more than Manhattan. Manhattan, at least, is easy to navigate. The roads are wide. They're built for big vehicles. It's just a lot of fucking traffic, and you go stop and go for miles at a time. You can't drive anywhere. You just creep and crawl through New York. DC, you can drive in some places, but it's all weird and hard to navigate, and all the 5-sided blocks and everything because everything's built like a pentagon. DC is a fucking weird city. I'm not a big fan of DC. Baltimore, though, is awesome, and so is New York. Yeah, well, that's got nothing to do with New York there. The tariffs didn't come from New York. I've never really had a great desire to go see the Great Lakes, but they would certainly be interesting to see. maybe a 12-hour drive for me. I'm not really sure. I guess I could get to the nearest one within about 12 hours. Obviously, they go all the way up into Canada, so it would be a much longer drive than that overall. But to get to the nearest point in the Great Lakes for me would probably take me about a 12-hour drive. Yeah, DuPont Circle's always busy, but at lunchtime, doubly so. Yeah, that's more my style. I like the large tank with lots of fish in it rather than the, one big impressive fish. I don't know. Maybe someday I might do that. I've thought about like the arowana or something like that. That would always be awesome to have something, a big impressive fish like that. I guess my more realistic one would be a red pike cichlid. They get about 14 or 15 inches, and I'd get like a pair of those or something and kind of have that. Excuse me. Kind of have the pair of the red pike cichlids in a tank. That would be neat. Um, but then I look at this whole tank and I see two fish in it. I don't care if they're big fish, two fish in this whole tank. I could have 22 fish in this tank and have a community that interacts and different fish doing different things in different parts of the tank and, always something different to look at. And so the big monster fish thing has just never really appealed that much to me overall. It's kind of like a monster truck in a way. You see it, it's cool, it's neat, and then once you've seen it do its thing, it's like, all right, well, I've seen that, and then you don't really need to see it do that again. I've never really thought about, put serious thought into it. Plus, I would have to basically empty out a tank and start from scratch. So I would need to be in a situation where like something happened and one of my tanks collapsed or something. I had some tragedy where all my fish died, and I could start over and just put one big ass fish in it or something. So I don't think it's very likely I'll ever be doing that. A biker or an L? I would love an eel. And the bikers or bachirs or however you pronounce them. I've heard it both ways, although I've been told that it's correctly pronounced a biker, even though I think that's funny. I do like those a lot. I really think those are neat. But again, I've never really had a setup where they'd be appropriate. Eels will eat anything. I guess there's certain eels I could get that are smaller or something. I don't know. I've never been one that has picked out a particular fish and then gone and sought it out where I've, couldn't find it in, so I ordered it online. I have an idea of what I want, but like if I'm going down to pick up some Bosmani rainbow fish, for example, and they don't have any Bosmani rainbow fish, but they do have these albino millennium rainbow fish, that's what I came home with. And so I've never gotten the Bosmani because they just weren't available on the day I finally decided I was going to go get some. And so here we are like 7 years later. I'm still waiting for these guys to die off so I can finally try again. And I know if I go down there all ready to get some Bosmani and I got the money or the weed or whatever I'm going to use to get, purchase the fish with, if they don't have them that day, I'll probably still come home with something. I might give it to, maybe go home empty handed one time, but if I'm going back down all the way down there a second time, I'm fucking coming home with something. I'm not gonna not come home with some fish. So I've never been one of those people that like picks out a fish and then goes and gets it. I might decide I want an angelfish or I want a betta fish or something like that. That's a little different. You can always go to the store and find one of those. But like the oddball fish or the specific ones. So getting a specific kind of eel that would work in this particular tank I have would really be luck of the draw. I'd have to be there at the right time, the right day, ready to buy that. It'd have to be available. The price would have to be right. So again, chances of that happening anytime soon is probably pretty slim too. I had an elephant nose for a while. In this tank actually, and it just all of a sudden one day wasn't doing well and died. But I had it for like 9 months. I also had a black ghost knife fish, which was really fucking cool, and it was big. It was like 9 inches long when it finally died. But if you remember me talking before, I had a period where I went, so I was still drinking, and I went through just a bad depression period that lasted for an extended period of time, and my fish tanks really suffered. I barely came in here and fed them every day. And the tank that the ghost fish was in, the knife fish, didn't have an air stone in it, and I let weeds and shit grow over the surface, and it got that biofilm all mixed in with it. And I think the filters were slowing down or getting clogged, and I wasn't getting a lot of circulation. And I came down one morning, and he was just in there dead, and I just kind of assumed it was from oxygen deprivation. So that did, unfortunately, motivate me to force myself to do some work in the fish room that day. And I did get some of the tanks a little cleaned up and, some filters and stuff taken care of. But that's how I lost my black ghost knife fish. It was a cool fish. I like those. What are they? Morbarids or something? I think they are. Never had the whale. I do like the whale though. But you sponsor a tank? Oh, that's cool. I do like those little dolphin fish. They're cool. That's one of the ones I've never had. I have had the elephant nose and I have had the ghost fish. I had the black knife ghost fish. The brown ghost or the brown knife fish gets like 2 feet long and has the spots on it. That fish is awesome. But you need a really big ass tank for that fish. Oh, we're back to sexy fish. How big is your tank, Dade? I'd say the bare minimum for angelfish is a 20-gallon. And again, you got to do what I was saying earlier, and you got to really make sure it doesn't grow big in the tank. Keep the temperature a little bit cooler, 76 degrees, 77 degrees, and just give it a little bit of food every day. Keep it healthy, but you really don't want to feed it a lot because an angelfish can easily outgrow a 20-gallon tank. Even feeding it, I've had a lot of them that even if I did that, they still wound up outgrowing the 20. You kind of have to get lucky and get an angelfish that doesn't get very big, and then you can get away with a 20. Otherwise you kind of need a bigger tank than that for an angelfish. Yeah, the African brown knife fish. That's what I was just talking about. Oh, wow. That's a different one. I've never heard of one of those before. Mike, how are you? Oh, is it a little tiny one? I thought the African brown one was the one that got really big. Maybe that's just a common brown one. Um, they're kind of bottom fish that need to root around. So real estate is more important than depth. So if you did a 20 long, you might be able to get away with it. But I think they get like 9 inches or something when they're full grown. So that might be a little small. Yeah, well, ABBA, not the ABBA ABBA, but just the ABBA is the best band ever. Yeah, I thought the elephant fish got fairly large. I think they get like 9 inches or something. So you'd need a fairly significant tank. And again, it's the real estate that's important. It's not the depth. They probably do fine in 8 inches of water, but they need room to forage, and they find their food down in the substrate and stuff, and so they need ground to root around in. Oh, that's what it is. It's the clown, not brown. It's the clown knife fish that's got those big spots that go down its side. It's like a golden brownish color, but it does have the spots on it. And it's the clown one. That's what I was thinking of. Corrected me again, Zini. Good job. Hey, Rosie, how are you? Yeah, Rosie, those are coolie loaches that just do the loops and swirls and chase each other around. Well, the coolie loaches are the ones. Actually, I don't even think I have any coolie loaches in there anymore. Um, you're probably talking about my other loaches now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know why these didn't come to mind first. Well, yeah, I do. Um, I have an Angelicus loach and a couple of yo-yo loaches and a skunk loach in there. So those are the ones you would have seen that are sort of dolphin shaped or sort of shark shaped. They chase each other, they swim around, they do the loops and all that kind of stuff. So it's an Angelicus, yo-yo, and a skunk. Yeah, that's what it is. I got the black skirt tetras in that same tank. Well, we can have a look at the tank now if you want. So if you look at this one here, this is a yo-yo. This is my Angelicus. Looks very similar, but it's very different. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm lying to you. Is that my Angelicus? No, that's another yo-yo. The Angelicus is, did you see that little one dart away in the back? The smaller one is the Angelicus. It's brown with sort of white spots on it. It looks really similar to the yo-yos. That's why I confused them. But there's another, that's that yo-yo again. They only have that yo-yo pattern on them when they're babies. When they grow up, they have this sort of mottled, squiggly, stripy pattern on them, and they get pretty chunky. They get fairly significant in size. I did have a big, fat fucking female in here. I mean, she was huge, and I came out, and she was on the floor one morning. So, all the years I've had loaches, I've never had one jump, and she was years old. But even though I've got this cover on here, there's a gap in the front, and she, she hit it enough or hit it in the right way that came right down and fell out that gap. And I found her on the floor not too long ago, a couple of months ago. But it's the yo-yos and the Angelicus are the ones you see that are brown like that. The skunk loach is sort of gray and has a stripe down its back, and it literally has a black stripe all the way down its back, so it really does kind of look like a skunk. And I used to have a bunch of them in there, but I'm now down to one. I thought they were all gone, but I saw the skunk in there the other day. So we don't see it as often as we used to, but I do believe it is still in there because, again, I saw it not too long ago. So unless it died very recently, it should still be in there. All right. Hey, it's 10 o'clock, so we're going to start winding down. Let me get on back up in the first positions now that I just sat down. Yeah, the loaches are fun to watch. They're really active. They're always doing something. If they're not chasing each other around, they're messing with the other fish and bothering the other fish, snooting around in corners, going into little holes, anything they can find to burrow their way into. You kind of have to be careful with loaches. If you've got areas that they can wriggle into but can't wriggle back out of, they will get stuck in there. I've lost loaches that way in the past. So be careful about that. They will wriggle their way in any cracks they can find, between rocks and stuff. But I do recommend the loaches as well. They're a good bottom feeding fish too. Raphael catfish, ultimately mine is in a 55 and it seems a little cramped. I would recommend maybe a 70 for a Raphael, mid to upper 70s, 75, 78 degrees is fine. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of albino fish either, but every now and again I see one that strikes my fancy. I had an albino red-eye angelfish that was gorgeous. That's the one that Chinese algae eater killed. And I got my albino rainbow fish in here too. Yeah, I was definitely bummed when I found that one dead on the floor. Hey, Hannah, how are you doing this evening? I probably do have a video explaining about salt for brackish water. You would have to go onto my channel page. I've got a whole brackish tank playlist. You may have to do some serious scrolling to find what you're looking for, but I probably got something in there. If you got questions, I'm here now. I can answer some questions for you if you want. All the way down the hallway. Damn. Yeah, once they land on the ground, they start flicking and they can go quite a distance before they finally dry up and get stuck to the floor. I don't know if that's mating behavior or not. They just do that. They always do that. And again, now that the big fat female's out of there, they all still do it all the time. So I don't think that was mating behavior. Go so hard. How are you? Let's see. Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to buy marine salt, or not sea salt at the grocery store. That's completely different. You need to go to an aquarium shop or online or whatever, and you need to buy marine salt. There's a couple different brands, but Instant Ocean is the most common brand. That's what I always used. So you need to buy that kind of salt, like you're going to be mixing up salt water for a marine tank. You can't just use table salt. It's got to be marine salt. And then you just don't mix it up as salty as ocean water. And as Christopher pointed out, you really kind of do need to get yourself a refractometer. They're not expensive. And it's a way for looking, you look through it and it shows you how salty the water actually is. And you can dial it in exactly, to what salinity you want it. I could give you some rough guesses on how to get it close. But I really wouldn't be that comfortable with it. I don't know how specific. It's probably, it doesn't have to, it's not like baking a cake. It doesn't have to be exact for the fiddler crabs. They can do a wide range. So as long as you use the marine salt, again, not table salt or sea salt, but marine salt, mix it up to the point where if you taste it a little bit, it's just starting to taste salty. You want to be able to definitely taste the salt, but you don't want it to be like salty. You don't want it to taste like ocean water kind of salty. Just where you're starting to taste the saltiness. If you can't buy a refractometer, you don't want to or whatever, start with, always start with a little bit of salt and work your way up. But you're going to be going with at least probably a tablespoon per gallon, maybe a tablespoon and a half per gallon. And again, you want to get it to where you can just start to taste that saltiness, and that'll put you at a low end brackish. It'll definitely be brackish water, but it'll be on the lower end of brackish if you get it to that taste level, just past the taste threshold where it's just starting to taste salty. Let's see. Wife thought it was a roach. That must have been a big ass shrimp. Yeah, that's not, you don't want aquarium salt. Aquarium salt is the same as table salt. That's just calcium chloride or sodium chloride. You want marine salt. It's got a bunch of different mineral salts mixed in with it. If you mix your aquarium salt up and taste it, it'll just taste like salt water. If you use the marine salt, when you mix that up and you taste it, it tastes like ocean water. And I don't know if you've ever been to the ocean before, or ever gotten ocean water in your mouth, but it tastes like ass. It is nasty. So if that's all you've got for the moment, it's better than nothing. You can put that in there, and that'll get them through for a while. But you really need to get the marine salt, as soon as you can. That's what they need. Aquarium salt it's exactly the same as table salt, so that's not what you need. I honestly don't know what kind of native crayfish we have in our area, or crawfish if you prefer, although crayfish is the correct word. The ones we have around here and the ones I've seen my whole life that I just found out a couple of years ago are invasive are called virile crayfish. And they're the ones with like the brownish body and they get the big purple claws on them. Sometimes they're bluish. But there are other crayfish. When I started looking into the ones I was catching, trying to identify them, I started looking at Maryland crayfish species. And we have like 3 species of crayfish that are supposed to be native to Maryland that I swear to God, I've never in my life ever seen in any stream I've ever found crayfish in. And that's been a lot of them over, from here to the fucking mountains. I found crayfish in streams and stuff. I've always done that. I love rooting around in streams and seeing what's in them and whatnot. I've never seen another kind of crayfish besides this virile crayfish. And so I always just assumed that was a Maryland crayfish. And when I looked them up trying to identify them, I couldn't find them. And I finally just started looking at all the different crayfish. And when I finally recognized it, I started looking into that, and I found out that, yes, it is in Maryland, and it's an invasive species that's practically taken over the state and killed off or driven out all of the, native species. So I've never seen anyone to my, maybe I did, maybe when I was a kid, I picked one up, thought it was a weird looking crayfish or something, and didn't know what it was. But I don't ever recall that. I just always remember this is the crayfish that we have around here. And apparently it's an invasive species. I think the rusty crayfish might even be one of the ones that is native to Maryland. I know it was one that had like a reddish color or red claws on it or something. It's been so many years since I've looked into it. Let me have a look-see, and we'll see what it comes up with for native. Wow, this is gonna be really fun trying to type because I still have to look at where the letters are. I can't just type like a normal person. If I ever lost my vision completely, I'd be screwed because I would not be able to type. So looking at a flashing keyboard while I'm trying to type is difficult. What am I looking for? Native Maryland crayfish. I don't know why I just did that. I typed it in to nowhere. Let me open up a search and type that into a search. All right, let me see. Let me put my secret identity on. Maryland is home to 9 native crayfish species. Holy shit. Including the common crayfish, the acuminate crayfish, spiny creek crayfish, rusty crayfish, virile crayfish. The non-native crayfish outcompete native species for research. This is the AI overview, so I know. Yeah, it is. Let me see if I can find like a Maryland DNR. Yeah, there's a Maryland DNR. Oh, it's a PDF, so we'll see what we get. All right, this is... Man, that's touchy. All right, this is the one that I catch around here. This is the virile crayfish. Looks like that. And sometimes where you can see sort of this darker color in here and around its face. Sometimes that'll be really blue or purple color. And again, the coloration on the claws down here can be really blue and purple. So that is the one I catch everywhere. And again, I thought that was a non-native, but that's saying it's a native species. So let me scroll down and see if I can find anything else. We're scrolling past all the fucking. Now we're looking at how to identify them, sex them, and all that stuff. No, we're just looking at their claws. It's going down list by list on each species, but it's only given me the scientific name for them. But apparently we have 9 different species of crayfish here in Maryland, so who knew? I sure the hell didn't. I thought we had 3 or 4 maybe. And again, the virile was coming up on those lists. So maybe the virile crayfish is a... What the fuck am I doing here? Maybe the virile crayfish is native to around here. All right, I need to get caught up on some comments. Rosie, welcome to Basic Membership. All right, where was I? There I was. Yeah, definitely don't get Epsom salt. Oh, yeah, Bob. Fucking Florida is ground zero for invasive species. Jesus. You're lucky to find anything that's native left down there. Phil made a brief appearance. Oh, let's see. I'm hungry too, actually. All right, thanks for stopping by, Barali. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Enjoyed your visit this evening. That is one sexy frog. You have to lift up its back end and squeeze its nuts to make sure everything's all intact. Yeah, well, what was the other name? I remember the Hardy Boys guy, the Tom Hardy or whatever you said his name was. I know it's not Tom Hardy. I think he's an actor, isn't he? That shows you how up with the current events I am. Ron Hardy, right. I got that one written down. And then you said there was another one that was EDM music or something. ESG. Let me go write that down too real quick while I'm thinking about it. Still got my stuff out here to write with. All right. Got it. All right. I will definitely check those out. Thank you for the recommendations and get a good night's sleep tonight. Got a message blocking my comments. There we go. All right. Good night, Dade. Thanks for stopping by. And I am going to wind it down now. So if anybody's got any last thoughts or whatever, we'll go ahead and start turning some lights out. We'll get some dark room disco ball effect. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me go back in the corner while there's still a little bit of light left and get that window closed. It's actually starting to get chilly in here. So it's about time to fire up the old kerosene heater. Although I just put diesel fuel in my kerosene heater. It's ruining my wick. I will say that, though. I went out and I got some of the clean burn stuff, the kerosene you get at the store rather than at the gas station. And it's $12 a gallon, but it's almost odorless when it burns, and you get a really bright yellow flame on it. And it doesn't destroy my wick. I used that for years in that thing. And when I started using diesel fuel, it's one of those tall, you crank the wick up and it's got the circle on the inside that burns. And when I started using diesel fuel, I noticed that the fire was getting smaller and smaller, and it's harder and harder to light with the little electric lighter. I have to like put a flame in there now to get it lit. And what I realized is the diesel fuel is leaving a lot of crud behind, because I also have those little like table lamps that you turn the wick up, and I burn the diesel fuel in those as well. And after just a day or two of using them, I have to crank the wick up so it's exposed, and I have to break like a big crusty part off the top of it to expose fresh wick, and then it burns nicely again. This thing, my space heater, I have to completely disassemble it to get to the wick, and if you break parts of the top of the wick off, it doesn't work anymore. You have to replace the wick. And so I think I ruined it by running diesel fuel through it. And so I went out and I bought some new stuff, and I do have a replacement wick. So when I finally completely ruined it, I'll take that wick out, and then I'll start putting the good stuff back in it, and I will be able to use it from then on again. So probably way more information than you give a shit about my heater, but now you know not to run diesel fuel through yours. Oh, now I got to write that down too, because I definitely like the disco. All right, Iceman. Thanks for stopping by. It's always good to see you. If you're still there. Well, those things are for like heating a garage or something. Those things are massive. I actually caught my coveralls on fire one day. I was standing in front of one of those, and I was standing too close to it. And of course, the coveralls were insulating me. Good night, Zany. And I'm standing there, and eventually I just started smelling smoke. And I looked down, and my coveralls were charring, and smoke was coming off of them. So I was standing a little too close to the heater that winter. Good night, Mike. Good night, Christopher. And everybody else that's watching. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I enjoyed myself as usual. We also caught a ladder on fire. Well, I caught a ladder on fire too. It was an old wooden ladder, and I set the space heater, or I set the ladder in front of the space heater, not thinking about it. It was about a foot away from it. When we came back in, the bottom of the ladder had charred so badly that it wasn't usable, so we had to throw it away. So those space heaters are pretty fucking serious. All right, everybody. I'm going to say goodnight on that note. And I will see my members on Wednesday, and everybody else, I will see you all next Friday. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you soon. Good night.